Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us again this week. This week we're talking with Suzannah, who is a speaking coach. She's a communication guru. And this is directly because so many of you have shared with me that communicating effectively at any time is not easy. And now we have the distraction, if you're in a virtual meeting, of somebody's phone or their kids come for a drink and all of the other things in our challenging, complex reality. You want to find new and different ways to elevate your communication effectiveness and be able to have people pay attention to you. So that's Suzannah's expertise. Suzannah, what are you seeing and how can you help folks be clear on how do we get people's attention and how do we communicate by putting our best foot forward?
Well, first of all, Sarah, thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for asking that question, and so that we can help your rock stars be more effective, not just at communications, but also in conversations and in presentations and any time that they have to get up and speak and share their expertise. So you were asking, like, how do you make an audience want to listen to what it is that you're going to say? And you know what, it really depends, you know, on your audience. What is the context that you're speaking? Are you speaking to your team? Are you speaking up in a meeting? And what is the context surrounding that? So very often in a meeting, I think sometimes we all struggle with not wanting to speak up. I think that's one of the first things is the worry that I have something to say, but I'm not sure if it's dumb. Maybe I'll just not say anything at all, because you don't want to put yourself out there. And then 9 times out of 10, what happens?
Somebody else says it. You're like,
someone else says it. And everyone goes, wow, great question. Good for you. Wow, great. Let's talk about that offline more. So it's happened to me. And I think that's why I understand that horrible feeling in your stomach that happens when you start beating yourself up about it, because you want to share your expertise. You want to get all the information out quickly, but you want to make sure, like, how am I going to say this so that the audience cares, right? Yeah. So in the work that I do, I usually work with people who come to me with these issues, and they say a lot of the time, some of the other problem is that they share the information and it sort of comes out as an FYI or a fact, and people will nod blankly, and there's no, they're not compelled to do anything. They're not compelled to move forward. So thank you for saying what it is you just said. Duly noted. Let's move on, which also is it's not getting you any results, right? It's not moving.
And it can be deflating. It's like I keep saying the same thing and nothing keeps changing. And so we feel either frustrated with ourselves, or more often we're frustrated with the people around us. Like, haven't you put 2 and 2 together that things need to change? But if we're just presenting facts, people haven't necessarily figured out what they need to do with that.
Yeah. And that's it, because what's in our mind is that we have to share a certain amount of information or a certain type of information. So we focus on the facts. Here are the facts. Now, I hope you guys will see how important that is, and you will decide to go and do something about it. But really the onus is on us, right? The onus is on us, not just to share the facts, but to share why the facts are important and why your audience will want to do something about it, right? And so when I teach how to be more effective at your communications and at your presentations, I really kind of go with a 3-step process. Step 1 is really getting clear on what it is that you want to say, getting clear on your expertise and what you need to tell your audience, but also marrying that and combining that with, how do I say this in a way that they need to hear it so that they will take action on it. So in a sense, while the first thing we want to do is educate our audience so that they learn something. Here's the fact, right? We give them the information. That's not enough, right? It's not enough to compel them to action. It's not even enough for them to see why it's important. So then those of us who then are speaking, it is on us to find out or figure out what we need to say to inspire them so that they feel like this is worthwhile, so that they feel that this is even more worthwhile to pay attention to and do something about. And then following on that, once they feel that, they are more likely to do something. So we as speakers are looking to educate our audience first, inspire them to feel something, and then persuade them to do something, right? It's up to us to say, okay, well, if this is the situation and this is what we feel needs to happen, this is what we now need to do. So we bring it forward.
Giving people a next step. So here's the information, not just the facts, ma'am. Here's the facts, and here's what I'm recommending is our very next step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what's important in that also is not just that you're recommending the next step, but if you bring your audience with you through this entire thought process and stream of consciousness of here's what it is, and here's why we need to feel a certain way about it, and here's what we do about it, they will want to do something about it. They will see the value. You will have explained why it's so important, not just to the company, but why it's important to them. And that compels them to want to do something about it. And, it likens it, it makes me think of, and I know you're in all the speaking that you do, you also attend a lot of presentations. And there have been so many presentations that I have attended, and possibly you have too, that the speaker kind of dumps just like a pile of information on you.
Yeah.
It's a full data dump. And with the thought of, I'm going to tell you everything I know. You take what's relevant, leave the rest, and I'm off the stage, right? And I'm done with you.
And it's like a team meetings like that often too.
Yeah.
Here's all the things, team, you need to know. And we don't have, our brains are not hardwired to just keep the floodgates open. We need hooks in our head to attach that to something I already know and I care about. I need to see why, to your point earlier, why is it important? And everybody has a slightly different sort of motivation, right? Yeah. I may be really motivated because of the customer or the patient experience. Somebody else is motivated because they desire efficiency. Somebody else is motivated because they love completing something. So being able to communicate our message in a way that people want to receive it and respecting, there's a whole bunch of different listeners in the room.
Yeah. And everybody comes with their own bias. Right. And that's why it's not very clear when you load a bunch of information onto an audience, it's not going to be clear what to do next. And then it becomes, thank you for your input. Who else? And then you're dismissed. But if you get into this is what the issue is, this is why it's important, and this is how we go about moving forward and fixing it. That's what's important. And your audience doesn't necessarily need to agree with every single piece. But you as the speaker can show yourself, or you as the leader of that meeting can show your leadership simply by taking charge in that way, and not just sharing an idea or sharing a fact, but really leading them through the what, the why, and the how.
It's almost like anyone who's watching this who has read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, that's really in essence what you're talking about with the golden circle, isn't it? The more you get to why this is really important connecting on a human level, as opposed to that more cerebral level, it's naturally is more likely to draw people along, as opposed to have to drag people, along, especially since we're inundated with information, we're inundated with facts. We don't need more facts. We need more connection and meaning between that. Like, why does it matter to me? And I love how you're imploring people to connect the dots for folks, and not assume that they're connecting the dots because people are busy, they're distracted, they're tired, but they're doing the best they can. So we're not talking down to people. If we help people see what to do next, we're making them actually more successful because they're more likely to take action, as opposed to, oh, right, I should figure out how to do that. Or, oh, right, that's another thing I have to do. That's just stressful and overwhelming for people. Yeah.
And what you're saying about the connection, it's absolutely true, because if you can identify the why, right? And not just the business why, not why do we need to do this so that the business runs smoother, so that we make more money or we save more money. It's why on that personal level, so that everyone can understand that this not just affects the business, it affects their personal well-being. If they can move forward as a team, if they can move forward in whatever project they need to move forward. So the why really needs to include the business the business goal, but more importantly, the personal goal, so that we can create that connection. Because every audience, as they're listening to you, is going to be asking, why is this important to me? And
Right.
why should I care? Right? Why should I care about this? Okay, great topic, but I got work to do. So can we get this over with? So our job really is to hammer in very quickly, why is this important to you? And this is why you should care. And with any audience that I speak to, it's these two sentences that I want to drill into their heads, that the audience is always asking themselves, why is this important? Why should I care? And through every part of what you say, if you can't even answer to yourself why this piece of content is important or why they should care about it, then take it out. Don't say it, right? And say only those things that really will be meaningful to the audience.
So a little hack for everybody who's trying to figure out, so how do I do that on the fly? Especially my introverted friends. And you're like, I need time to process. When new things come up in meetings, I find it hard to, to figure out how to respond, or I don't want to be caught on the spot. Here's a suggestion that I like to, provide folks. Look at the agenda, ask yourself the why. What matters most to me? And think a little bit about, so if I were given the opportunity to give feedback on it, if I could weigh in on it, what would I say? Why does it matter to me? What would be my recommendation? And come prepared with not just the facts, but also what you've seen. And the more you can connect it to your experience, and you tell that through a story, which, by the way, is a side note to everyone, Suzannah very kindly put together a little mini guideline about how to story tell more, as opposed to just the facts, how to share it in terms of personal experience or an experience that you've seen, an example. And that's on greatnessmagnified.com/health leader. And even if you're not in health, that's okay. You still take it. The more you can prepare going into it and know what's most important to you, you're going to pay more attention to those parts of the agenda, and you're more likely to speak up. So even if you're busy, it's just a quick scan. And then your subconscious is going to noodle on, what would I say, if I had an opportunity to weigh in on that. Suzannah, before we close out, I just wanted to ask you, is there any other last pieces of advice you have for these very mission-driven, heart-based, super passionate people who watch this video, who are doing their very best to communicate in this busy world? Any other last tips that will elevate their confidence and their effectiveness in communicating?
Really, Sarah, it's about compelling people to speak up. At the beginning of this call, we talked about what happens often is that we think that we have a question, there's something we want to say, and we may hold back from it. There's a lot of expertise. Every person, every one of your rock stars listening to this has a ton of expertise, a ton of knowledge in the field, and it's a shame if that expertise can't be recognized or shared with others. You have your own unique point of view, your own style, your own way of speaking, but so much knowledge and so much expertise that needs to be shared, whether you're questioning things in a meeting, whether you're leading a meeting, whether you just want to speak up and say something. It's really about making sure that you go ahead and you speak up. And I love what you said before about be prepared in your meeting. Don't just walk into a meeting and check the agenda, check it before. What are the issues that you want to bring up? Why are they important to you, and why should they be important to other people? And really take every time you speak, don't just load facts and information, right? Create the context around why it's relevant to that audience. And the more you can do that, the more your audience will start to see you taking the leadership role, creating that visibility, creating that reputation as someone who knows what's going on and someone worth following in the organization. So really it's about positioning yourself as a leader, and you do that by just putting these things in place, these small steps in place that will ultimately show you that way.
Yeah. And everyone watching this is a leader, whether you formally have adopted that as a title, or, your, how you view yourself. The fact that you have something to say makes you a leader. Titles aside, the fact that you have something to say. And as Suzannah just beautifully pointed out, you have expertise that people need. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Suzannah, for your expertise.
Thank
and
you.
Can't wait to share this with everybody. If you have questions, we'll make sure to put some links below so that you reach out to Suzannah. Thanks so much. Bye.